Hello, the game has started. It's me to go first. I've got a lot of high-scoring tiles, but I can play Pyrex, which I think maximises the score. And that is a fantastic pickup. I draw a blank, and I am surely bingoing here. So the best bingo lane is column 11, a double-double through the E, and that remains available. Fantastic. So I have étagères through that E. That places an E and an A next to triple letter squares. So I'm going to have a look for a better bingo. Étagères also places an S in the open. Steerage is its anagram. That also places an A next to the triple letter square. So this rack plus an E. That'll be 4 E's. Fig eater through an F. That's éclater. That doesn't work for me. Generate. That has the same problems. And teenager. And renegade. That's the rack I've already considered. Okay, so it's steerage or étagères. I'm going with étagères. For 82. And that's because steerage takes an S, étagère does not take an S. And also I'm putting multiple vowels next to premium squares, so opponent can't have first dibs at all of them. Now this rack looks promising. Through an O I would have clitoral. Do I have anything through the E? Wow, it looks like there could be something, and there are 2 available E's on the board. So if I do have a bingo, it will surely play. Great, just 33 for opponent. So, do I have a bingo through an E or an S? And it's the E which looks more promising. Well, it's not coming to mind. So I'm going to abandon that. Them takes an O for future reference. So what are my options? I guess this is quite hot up here next to TE. So my del can go there. I certainly want to split up the del, the L's. And a T can go next to AT. Not seeing anything which plays in that spot. Well, I have tilt. Gosh, I have a tilt. Tilt takes an A and an S, so I don't want to play just that. That just doesn't feel great. What about a play through DE? Not seeing anything. Wow, this is a tricky spot to be in. This rack looks fairly flexible. So I could take out this spot and play talc for 13. What a dismal score. What about playing triac instead? 21, it's more points. Rack leave horrendous, so I'm not doing that. I think I'll play Sill. It's a good rack leave. I'm covering the double letter square. It's a good score. And this rack leave of art goes well with E and S. I could get burnt in row A, but a 9 timer is, or triple triple, very unlikely. Great. I have servant and versant, both of which take an S, so I have a row K bingo. Hopefully opponent will be distracted by this C without tripling through it. I don't have an O for ovum. Do I have a bingo through C or I in case my lower bingo is blocked? I don't think I do with the C. Great, opponent has been distracted, and look at this, he's provided a spot for servant in column 15. Fantastic. Is that the best bingo? I think it is. Servant for 92. Wow, it places this A. If opponent has the Z, that could be a quick comeback. So, what are the anagrams of servant? Servant and versant. Any others? Well, if there are, I don't think they play in column 15. Dreadful rack. However, I have a good lead, 150 points. I could play Uoi in row A, should that remain available. I don't have that in column 14, but what I do have is FOU. So I certainly am playing rather than changing. I don't have anything better than FOU in column 14. FEEU, possibly, but I think I prefer FOU. Great, opponent takes out row A for a tiny score. And FOU is nice because it's taking out bingo lanes, it's taking out a hotspot, it's creating nothing new. E and S of Etagere still super hot, and opponent has created a bingo lane in row B, and there's still column 6, so it's not a closed board. Now I am in the hands of the Scrabble gods in terms of avoiding more vowels. I draw 3 vowels, so I think I will be changing this turn. At an absolute minimum, I would want to play off 3 vowels, and I'd want to score quite well. And I can't see a way of doing that through the X. Great, opponent takes out useful floaters. Ideal time to change. And I'll just keep a solitary E. Well, that's not a bingo-y rack, but it is fairly balanced in terms of vowels and consonants. And if you haven't got a bingo, it's good to see scoring tiles on your rack, because the idea is that you use those to score 20 or 30 points and leave a decent rack leave. ISO takes an M in front for future reference. Now I have worry in column 12. That remains available. Opponent changes. I also have worry here, which is quite nice. It takes out that lane. It doesn't really create new bingo lanes, and it interferes with the floating S of Etagere. So worry for 36. I'm just pausing in case I have a bingo with this rack, but I'm not seeing one. Rad does take an E, so the S is available as a floater. Now, that looks promising. Is there a 7 here? Close to Aeolian. Well, there may not be a 7, there certainly will be some 8s, but there aren't many floaters on the board. Through an L, I would have lanolin. Opponent creates a new lane. But am I missing a bingo with this rack? Floating R, doesn't look helpful. What about the S? I think there is one here with the S, but it's not coming to mind, and I don't think it's playable. So where else to consider? Pretty much nowhere. How to sort the rack out, and it's going to be tricky given I've got all 1-pointers, so I'm going to struggle to score. What I could do is this. Leonor for 21. Turns over tiles. I've got a good lead. Still one blank to come. The L, not massively useful in column 1 in terms of bingos beginning or ending in L. Rackleaf pretty good. Do I have any alternative way of scoring 20 odd points? Leonor also interferes with column 4, but it does provide 3 or 4 fairly bingo-y floaters. What about a play through the X? Can't see any ox plays. Do I have Xenia? Wow, I do. In fact, I have Xenial for 34. Yeah, I think that's a much better play all round. Well, a ton of bingo-y tiles, but they include 5 vowels, so I think I'm unlikely to bingo here. What about the floating L? That's probably the most useful floater. Not seeing anything through that. Twig takes an S, and there are 2 S's and a blank to come. Opponent may have been sorting his rack out, but he may have just had an eye on how far behind he is, so I can't really infer that he has an S or a blank. However, I'd quite like to take out that danger. Can I do that and sort the rack out? Well, I'm looking for a play beginning next to AW, but what about a play higher up, because sight is good? Well, then I wouldn't have... Well, I just can't see a play beginning with E, which obstructs row O. I certainly need to place a tile next to the G. So this is what I think I was struggling to find. Aeon for 23. It's a good score. The Rackleaf's pretty poor. Let me check the remaining vowels. 17 out of 36, so it's a balanced bag. I could be in more vowel trouble, but I am interfering with row O as a bingo lane. I'm going with this. Great, I'm not swamped with vowels. I do have a couple of scoring tiles, and I have a 200-point lead. I thought for a moment I had optimum on my rack, and I don't. So 34 for opponent. I do have an I for going underneath the Q. So I could play putty. 9 minutes on my clock. And I think I will. I like the idea of turning over a lot of tiles when my rack isn't particularly fantastic, so no super hot 4 or 5 letter rack leaves that I want to hang on to. And I'm helping to expedite the end of the game and draw the blank. And looking at the remaining tiles, they are pretty bingo-y. And certainly column 4 is quite a hot bingo lane. Well, I'm in a similar position to last move. I don't have a bingo-y rack, but I have good scoring tiles. And my lead, 190 points. Can I lose from here? Now, just looking at the bottom of column 15, what goes after lie? Well, nothing that I've got, so my only options are 2-letter plays. And I might do that if it remains available. I could play BO, 24 points. Now, do I have any big plays in row H ending in R? I have Boomer for 36 points. And B, O and M are not particularly useful floaters. 9 minutes on my clock. Column 8, a bingo lane for 9-letter plays beginning up. Probably quite a few of those, but however many there are, they're unlikely to appear on any given rack. But there are so many possibilities on a Scrabble board that many actual plays are low probability. For example, there are very high probability words which you may not play for years. So, do I have any alternatives to Boomer? Well, I have Moho, which opponent has just blocked for 4 points. Fantastic. So, Boomer for 39. Great. Another similar position of a non-bingo rack, but useful scoring tiles. And when you've got a lead, well, I'm pretty sure this lead is unassailable. But when you've got a lead, it's quite nice to see these non-bingo racks. The really problematic ones are the very unbalanced racks which contain only 1-point tiles. I've still got options in column 15. Nice bingo by opponent. He's now 150 behind. And the remaining tiles pretty non-bingo-y. And there are Z spots, but they're not going to score a vast amount. So I'm looking to play off no more than 3 tiles. What can I do? Well, I don't have terribly much in the bottom right, just something like DO. I think that's about it. And I'd like to play off either the H or the K. So what about this obvious Z spot above the O of Boomer? Can I take that out? Well, I could play something like Midge. 7 minutes on my clock. I can play Hoke for 23. Or I could play Droke, keeping the H back and scoring more points. Droke for 26. Wow, horrendous. Perhaps not surprising. The bag was horrendous apart from the Z. However, similar position, still a balanced rack, still opportunities for scoring. My B can go next to the Y. It'll be interesting to see what opponent manages to find with his Z. Now I did empty the bag there. But with a lead as large as this, it certainly doesn't affect the end of the game. And the main reason you leave a tile in the bag is to avoid, well, it's to avoid opponent bingoing and getting lots on count back. And it's also to prevent him from planning an out in 2. So what can I do here? Opponent may well be able to plan an out in 2 with this rack, although it's looks pretty tricky. I guess he could play something like C's, and then he's got ochre somewhere. Okay, takes an E, and I'm looking now at my rack. Yeah, just 25 for opponent. Can he go out with A, C, E, O? Yes, because he's got cameo through the M, so which would be blocked by my placing my B here. Bay, not good, it's abbé. So slightly tricky end to the game. So 5 minutes on my clock. How to see this game out. And I'm just wondering if I have a play which blocks cameo, perhaps beginning with H. Well, I can play hum. I'd quite like a play which gives me the option of going out in 2, in case I am blocking my opponent only out. And in any event, even if he does have an out elsewhere, he may not spot it. Wow, I'm just struggling to see 5-letter plays or 4-letter plays on this rack. And the plays that I can see don't block cameo. Just thinking about a play making AWE. Not seeing one. And most frustratingly, I'm not seeing a 5-letter play beginning with the M, which I think would do the job. I guess this is just a clunky rack to deal with. So what about playing Heme? 18 points. And I'm not going to go out next turn, but at least I have the option of playing Bug. I'm going with this. There must have been a choice of outs in 2 there. But they eluded me. And I have Bug at the top, where opponent has played Cape. So I do get to have another go. I have Bug for 19. Just checking that opponent can go out with his O, and he can. So Bug for 19. Yeah, and I no longer have an option in the bottom right. 3 minutes on my clock. Can I do anything better than this? Not seeing it. And the final score, 358 for my opponent, 501 for me, a winning margin of 143 points, so a huge win. Let's see what I missed. So it was me to go first, and I had Pyrex for 50. And this was opponent's wrap. Wow, he has miss value. That's a tricky one to spot. A UV bingo. Given all the hate which that pair generates in Scrabble players' minds, that it was there. And that was the only bingo. I have a great rack. And, well, there's just a ton of bingos available. All for about the same number of points. Opponent's rack. Wow, look at this. This is the scenario I was talking about. 9-letter plays beginning with UP, and there was one. Uplandish. Well, I don't know that word. I've studied the top 4 or 5,000 nines, and this is going to be lower down the order in the list of probabilities. But a great looking word. And hand list, E4, also available onto the T of étagères. So both very tricky bingos to spot. Opponent plays Dar, and this was a rack I struggled with. And look at this. I really didn't consider extensions to Pyrex, or I certainly didn't mention them. I think I mentally thought about and rejected Pyrexing as being not even worth mentioning, but Pyrexial was there, and I wouldn't have been confident of that. And then the other options are the ones I played of Sill or Call. Opponent's rack plays Flint, and that is perfect because I have Servant for 92, and that's clearly best. Opponent's rack, 3 S's and a blank, swamped with goodies, and the were bingo's there. So he didn't play one, he played ISO, but as you can see he had a Soils, Isobases and Saties, but 3 S words are tricky to see. Although the S is a great tile, 3 S's is very unlikely, so it's going to be a low probability bingo. Now I'm swamped with vowels and I play FOU, and nothing scores more. Wow, opponent has Casitas for 92, not surprisingly doesn't spot it. Plays Rad, and this is horrendous, and I changed here. Neoi for 17, B13. Well, if the rack lead had been 4 different vowels, I think that might have been worth thinking about, but 4 E's is going to be worth probably around -17. And even if it's close to -17, I really don't want to be retaining 4 E's on my rack, so I'm happy with changing. Opponent's rack plays, well, he changes, and now this is my rack. I have Worry for 36, that looks fine. Opponent's rack, another bingo, Jigsaws for 88 points in row B. Plays Jar. I was just about to say now it's my turn to miss a bingo. I really felt that there could have been something on this rack, possibly even a 7, but there wasn't. H12 Xenia, that was my play, or Xenial, and that looks fine. Opponent has Twigless through the L of Xenial, very tricky one to spot. Plays Twig. So just going back, yeah, I said at the time that I couldn't infer that he had an S or a blank. In fact, he had all of the remaining S's and the blank. So he played Twig. Although I couldn't infer that he had one of those tiles, I still wanted to stop him from using row O either next turn or in the future. So I played Aeon for 23. That looks fine. And H1 Otia, well, that's just across to the R, creating more bingo lanes, so I prefer my play. Opponent draws the Q again, plays Cheese, and now I play Putty for 25, and I think that's similar to the other moves there, so I think that's fine. Opponent has a choice of bingos, plays TI, and I have Boomer for 39. Opponent's rack. He does spot bondings, but it's not too little too late, it's just too late, because even after that he's 140 points behind with just 4 tiles in the bag. This was a move I spent an age on, and I really didn't like my play, which doesn't feature here, not surprisingly. A2 Kefir through the P, that's much nicer. I am emptying the bag, but keeping DG and drawing vowels gives me a decent chance of going out next turn. However, I was concerned about blocking this Z spot, so that was part of my motivation in playing Droke, so it wasn't a complete disaster. Yeah, and look at that. Opponent would have got over 40 points with the Oa Boomer, but instead he's restricted to the 20s. And this is the rack which I just struggled with so much. J5 Beige, I think that would have been the play. Yeah, that's the play I was looking for, a 5-letter play which blocked Cameo. So I played Himi. Opponent does not have an out, so blocking Cameo was essential. Plays Cape. I don't have an out, but I do have Bug for 19. And then finally, opponent goes out. So, absolutely cracking game. Always good to score over 500 points, and particularly welcome given the run of dire results I've had in the last few games. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that stonking victory, and I will see you next time.